There are stories so bizarre, so unsettling that, honestly, it feels strange even making a video about them. I sit here, reviewing case materials, news reports, official summaries, police protocols, and every time, I catch myself thinking, wait, did this actually happen? The story seems so surreal, so nightmarish, it defies belief. And yet, and this is the most chilling part, everything checks out. Police reports, court records, witness testimonies from villagers, local news archives from the village of Mikhailovka. This is not fiction. I piece this together, fragment by fragment. News articles, interviews, investigative statements, eyewitness accounts. Some facts are officially confirmed, others come solely from those who were there. And in Mikhailovka, witnesses were never in short supply. It sounds grotesque, unfathomable. But everything I'm about to tell you did happen. Chapter 1. The girl no one would suspect. At the center of this story is a 21-year-old woman named Yelena Povelyakina, a student, blue-eyed, outwardly calm, even, perhaps, sweet-looking. Look at her photo, and you'd never guess this quiet young woman was capable of 2 brutal murders. But to understand how this became possible, we must go back to the beginning, to the family where Yelena grew up. Pyotr Povelyakina ran a local farm. He was sharp-tempered, volatile, and feared throughout the village, known as the kind of man you did not argue with. He'd strike without hesitation, bark orders, threaten. Control was his language. Yelena's mother was his opposite. Gentle, soft-spoken, submissive. For years, she endured, until 2012, when she simply vanished. She packed her belongings and disappeared while Pyotr was out working in the fields. Neighbors recalled seeing her hide at their homes, spending nights wherever she could, especially after Pyotr had chased her with an axe. Later, had returned. Flowers in hand, tears in his eyes, pleading for forgiveness. And each time, she came back. That final time followed the same pattern. A violent argument, then sudden silence. By morning, she was gone. No farewell. She changed her number, cut all contact, even with her children. Legally, they remained married. No divorce was ever filed. Pyotr searched for her a few times, unsuccessfully. Eventually, he gave up. Left behind were Pyotr, his teenage daughter Yelena, just 14, and her older brother Valery. After her mother's departure, Yelena began to change. In school, she remained average, no major issues, but over time, a hardness took root. Bitterness, rage, violent outbursts. Her father raised her like a boy. Sports, boxing, volleyball, farm labor from childhood. Though short in stature, Yelena became strong, physically capable, even feared in fights. She had jumped into brawls without hesitation, taking on boys taller and heavier, and usually winning. Villagers described her as blunt, straightforward, intolerant of defiance. She rarely chose her words, she used her fists. And sometimes, in her behavior, they sensed something deeper, something one witness called madness. Yet to Yelena, her father was everything, the only person she truly trusted. After her mother left, Pyotr became parent, mentor, confidant, all in one. She idolized him, and she defended him fiercely. To insult Pyotr was to insult Yelena herself. Chapter 2. The Return. She enrolled in an agricultural college in Omsk, training to become a veterinary technician. She graduated in 2019, but she never stayed in the city. She returned to Mikhailovka, partly out of loyalty, partly necessity. Her father's health was failing. Heart problems, weakening legs. The farm was crumbling. Workers stole. Animals starved. Every weekend, Yelena commuted home to fix things. Soon, she moved back for good. And that's when villagers began speaking of her second persona. She was no longer just Pyotr's daughter. She became the de facto manager of the farm and ruled with iron authority. Her rules were simple. Work poorly, you'll pay. Arrive late, you'll pay. Make a mistake, you'll pay. And pay meant literally. She pushed, grabbed, struck. Men, grown, hardened laborers, learned not to challenge her. The village nicknamed her the overseer. Ironic. Accurate. She looked petite, almost fragile, but had the strength of a grown man, locals recalled. Some respected her competence. But that respect was always laced with fear. Even her father admitted. Sure, she's rough, but order? There's order. With time, Yelena grew to mirror her father, not just in looks, but in temperament. Explosive, domineering, convinced force was the only solution. By late 2019, no one in Mikhailovka saw her as an ordinary young woman. Beautiful? Yes. Youthful? Yes. But beneath the surface, something volatile, coiled, dangerous. It was in this state, emotionally frayed, drowning in alcohol and unchecked rage, that she committed her first murder, a crime that would go unsolved for months. Chapter 3. Murder 1. Sergei Viktorov. August 19, 2019. A typical summer evening in Mikhailovka. In the outbuilding beside the Povelyakins' house, a converted sauna used for gatherings, workers sat drinking, talking, unwinding after a long day. Among them, Sergei Viktorov, 37, married, 2 children, a shepherd on the farm. He drank. He had epilepsy. But villagers knew him as quiet, gentle, harmless. All night, according to Yelena, he infuriated her. We don't know why. A misplaced laugh? A poorly timed comment? Something in his presence grated on her nerves. By 3 a.m., the party was ending. Everyone rose to leave, except Sergei. Drunk beyond function, he couldn't stand. And then, something snapped. As Yelena later admitted, I got angry and let my hands do the talking. She beat him, fists, feet, repeatedly to the head, face, torso. His injuries were catastrophic. Multiple broken ribs, ruptured liver, ruptured spleen. He would die from internal bleeding. But she didn't stop there. In a state later described by witnesses as unhinged, she committed a violent sexual assault, using the wooden handle of a shovel. Then, she pulled out her phone. She photographed herself beside his unconscious body. And she sent those photos to village chat groups with the caption, "This is what happens to anyone who disobeys me," followed by a string of laughing emojis. Realizing Sergei was dead, she tried to cover her tracks. Loaded his body into a garden cart, pushed it 200 meters away, propped him against a tree, as if head merely passed out, returned to scrub the blood from the floor. The next morning, a local woman discovered the body on her way to work. At first, everyone assumed accident or natural causes. Sergei had seizures, he drank heavily, but the autopsy told the truth. Death caused by massive traumatic injury. Still, no one went to the police. Fear of Yelena and her father overrode conscience. Even those present that night stayed silent. The case was closed as accidental death, and it might have ended there if 2 months later Yelena hadn't committed a second murder. Chapter 4. Murder 2. Igor Kozlov. October 16, 2019. Same outbuilding. Same gathering. Among the guests, Igor Kozlov, 31, from Belarus. A mechanic hired to fix farm equipment. Calm. Reserved. Unassuming. Just a man trying to earn money before heading home. The conversation turned to Yelena's father, and that, her one trigger, ignited her instantly. What Igor said remains unclear, likely just an offhand remark, a joke, a criticism. But to Yelena, it was sacrilege. Witnesses later recalled. You could see it in her face. She had lost all control. It was madness. She lunged at Igor so suddenly, no one could intervene. She struck him at least 38 times. Fists, feet, a wooden chair. The assault was relentless, no pauses, no mercy. When she finally stopped, Igor lay unconscious, but still alive. No one called an ambulance. Everyone was drunk. They assumed. Hell, wake up. He spent the night on the floor. He died the next morning of traumatic brain injury and asphyxiation. This time, the village's silence broke. One death could be dismissed as misfortune, but a second, committed in front of a dozen witnesses? Now, staying quiet was no longer an option. Chapter 5. Investigation and Confession. After Igor's death, investigators connected the two cases. This time, interrogations were thorough. Pressure mounted. The atmosphere shifted, serious, urgent. One by one, villagers began to speak. Hesitant hints at first, then direct testimony. And critically, the photos Yelena had sent resurfaced in investigators' hands. On October 17, 2019, around 2 p.m., Yelena was detained at her home. She offered no resistance. Calm. Detached. As if this were merely an inconvenience. At her first interrogation, she confessed fully. Sergei. He annoyed me. I hit him. Used the shovel handle. Igor. He insulted my father. I lost control. Did what I thought necessary. But within 24 hours, everything changed. Her father, grasping the horror, 2 murder charges, sold tractors, machinery, anything he could to hire 2 lawyers. After their visit to the detention center, Yelena retracted her confession. I did nothing. It was self-defense. They pressured me. People are lying out of jealousy. Too late. Chapter 6. Trial and Sentence. The evidence was overwhelming. Yelena's DNA and blood on Igor's body, including blood under her fingernails, matching the outbuilding floor. Blood traces in the sauna, matching both victims. The garden cart, still parked by her house. The incriminating photos, sent by her own hand. Eyewitness testimony, from those who finally found courage. Psychiatric evaluation confirmed. Fully sane. No mental illness. Alcohol intoxication, not grounds for diminished responsibility. The trial was held in closed session due to the disturbing nature of the crimes. An intriguing twist. Yelena initially demanded a jury trial, perhaps banking on her unassuming appearance to sway ordinary citizens. But she quickly withdrew the request, realizing jurors from the district knew her reputation all too well. In court, she remained eerily composed. No tears, no remorse. In her final statement, she said, "I sympathize with the victims' families, but I am not guilty." Charges. Part 4 Art. 111 Russian Criminal Code. Intentional infliction of grievous bodily harm resulting in death. 2 counts. Part 2 Art. 132 Violent sexual acts regarding Sergei and the shovel handle. Maximum penalty: life imprisonment. But factoring in her age, 21, clean record, and lack of premeditated intent to kill, the court imposed a reduced sentence. On August 7, 2020, the Sargatsky District Court sentenced Yelena Povelyakina to 13 years in a general regime penal colony. Her father appealed, funded by selling more assets, but the verdict stood. The evidence was simply too damning. Today, Yelena serves her sentence at Women's Penal Colony No. 2 in Tumen. She works in production. Occasionally writes letters to her brother. Her mother has never reappeared, not at trial, not since. By law, she may apply for parole no earlier than August 2029, after serving 2/3 of her term. Epilogue. This is not a story of conspiracy, not of hidden motives, not of a monster in disguise. It's the story of one person's long, slow descent to a point of no return. In Mikhailovka, everyone saw it coming, the hardening, the rage, the volatility. But as long as it didn't touch them directly, they stayed silent. They looked away. And when she finally crossed the line, twice, it was already too late. Sometimes, tragedy isn't a single explosion of violence. It's accumulated pain, swallowed injustice, the absence of boundaries, and the fear of those who could have stepped in earlier. This story isn't just about Yelena. It's about how communities sometimes create the very monsters they later recoil from and ask in horror, how could this even happen? It could. And truly, it did. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves, and never underestimate the power of speaking the truth before it's too late.